You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is June 3rd, 2026, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region, and bringing you news stories from a liberty perspective. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about the election results that just happened here in California. Yesterday was our primary day, and so we have some, well, we have some tentative results, and I guess we'll get into why they're tentative, but we do have tentative results on who the top two finishers are, and it's also kind of a crazy system here we have in California where it's the top two finishers in a primary that make it through, and we'll get into a little more about that later. But we're going to talk about the results from these primary elections, and then we're also going to get into a proposal by Trump for a $250 bill. So, boy, oh boy, is that a sign of economic change or what? I don't know, but we'll talk a little bit more about what all that means. And finally, in our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, related to the elections, we're going to give a farewell to Eric Swalwell. we knew you too well.
Yeah, couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Yeah, and of course he was kind of pivotal in these in this primary for a lot of reasons, especially in one of the finishers finishing where he did. So, but we'll get into that in just a bit. But before we do any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. With us again, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. I guess we always start with a Liberty quote of the day. This one may be a slightly controversial pick, I guess, for some in the Liberty movement, but I think he's a very interesting figure, and I love the quote, so that's why we're using it, because this quote is just last week we talked about, a quote from Mark Twain about, how it's easier to con people than to convince them they've been conned. And this is another quote about these con men that we have that have been running for office here in California. So let me bring up the quote. It is a quote from Henry Kissinger. So again, very interesting figure. He was a Secretary of State during the end of the Nixon administration and into the Gerald Ford administration. And he has been a very pivotal person on our foreign policy scene. And for a lot of conservatives, that's probably a really good thing. For a lot of libertarians, there's a lot of things we haven't been crazy about foreign policy. So there's going to be some of you who are maybe a little bit questioning, why we're using him. But the quote is wonderful, though. He said, "Corrupt politicians make the other 10% look bad." And I think that really nails it to a T. And I felt like we just lost one of the 10% the other day when Thomas Massie lost his House seat. But it's so many of these guys are just, you just feel like their morals are, that they're. I guess their principles, they tend to just change at a whim, and that's the crazy thing I think about how so many of these appear to look corrupt, right? I mean, if they say they stand for one thing one day and suddenly they stand for something else the next day, that's not a good look. And I think that's what Henry Kissinger was getting at here. And what are your thoughts on this quote, Leon?
Well, I mean, it sort of nails, hits the nail on the head, because, we have, since the founding of the Republic, I have to say, we have had a bunch of corrupt politicians who have been invading our lives at every turn that we make. And you have to wonder why we keep putting these corrupt people to supposedly guard our Constitution and take care of our liberties and all that, when we know these politicians do not have our interests at heart. I think most politicians believe their main goal is to acquire power And then their second goal is to keep power. All right. So once they acquire it, they have to figure out how to maintain it, how to keep it. And this is the very essence of corruption, because if they supposedly they're there to speak for us, they are our voices, they are our elected representatives, underline representative, and they are there supposedly to speak for us. But their goals are nothing more than I want power and then I have to figure out how to keep it. That they have the wrong incentives in terms of their legislations. They have the wrong incentives altogether. Our concerns are the least of their worries. It's only when there's an intersection between their acquisition and maintaining of power, when there's an intersection between that and the needs of their constituents, is then you can see them, oh, I'm fighting for the people. I'm fighting for the people. But this is the whole system of acquiring power and keeping it is where all of the corruption ferments and it becomes ever present. And you look on Capitol Hill today. I mean, these guys are so corrupt. Most of them probably should be in prison. Okay, seriously.
And some of them do wind up in prison.
So yeah, but not enough. This is the problem. Not enough. That's so. Of course, Henry Kissinger is correct. I mean, his statements are a little bit tongue in cheek, but obviously he's correct about this thing. Corrupt politicians just make the rest of everybody look bad. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Well, Leon, you know that there was. Speaking of which, I can't remember. You probably are up on this story, but I heard Santos, the guy that Trump had pardoned recently. I thought he gave him a pardon. He's back in the hot seat again, isn't he? Isn't he being pointed at for some kind of corruption? Isn't there something he just did? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I didn't. I really truly. I read the headlines of this story, yes, but Santos is a little bit of hot water again. I don't know exactly what it is or what it is. I really am tired of hearing about that guy. But no, I didn't really keep up on this story, to be honest. Yeah, but,
yeah. Well,
but yes,
I'll try and look that up after one of our videos and see if I can find out what he's in the hot seat for. But I mean, my God, he gets out of one bin of hot water and he's suddenly back in another.
Lance something says, yes.
Yeah. So, but you know, I think one of the things this says too, and this is one of the things I guess I always pull back a little on, is when we blame the politicians too much, because the politicians to some degree are a reflection of the electorate. I mean, you know, after all, if we don't have clear principles, it's quite a reach to expect that the people we vote for are going to have clear principles.
That is absolutely true. You know, I think we have spoken about this before, but one of the most dangerous thing, if not the most dangerous thing to our republic, is a complacent voter. And I think too much of our fellow Americans have become complacent voters. Such complacency exists in our politics today that many people, eligible voters, don't go to the polls. And those who do go to the polls, they always voting or R for the Republicans, voting D for the Democrats. They send the same people back to Washington over and over again, and they're just comfortable with the corruption. It seems like they're becoming comfortable and complacent about the corruption that is ongoing. So the most dangerous thing for our republic is complacent voters, and we have too many of them in existence in America today.
Yeah. And I do have to say, like, to your point, you know, a lot of times for president nowadays, I tend to vote libertarian. I think I've voted libertarian in the last 3 or 4 election cycles, probably for president. But a lot of times there may not even be a choice for a third party that represents any of your views. Like for instance, this time I saw there was a libertarian candidate. I think he actually endorsed Steve Hilton. And then I don't think there were any other libertarian candidates on the ballot here in California. And the Libertarian Party seems to be going through a little bit of a crisis in identity right now. They had a little bit of an implosion after the last election cycle when the people who wound up gaining control of the party for the most part wound up endorsing Donald. Well, not endorse. Well, I guess there were some voices within some big voices within the libertarian movement that wound up throwing an endorsement to Donald Trump.
Yes, yeah.
And so that kind of really tore at the fabric of the Libertarian Party, and now it seems to be swinging back a little bit more to a slightly left-leaning Libertarian Party, which I'm not thrilled at all about as far as the economics. I think the economics should be front and center to everything we're looking at, and to me it feels like the left-leaning Libertarians are a little bit more concerned with sort of social issues, and some of those I think aren't. It's not really even clear how liberty oriented all those are. I mean, you could, I almost feel like I'm hearing, people saying they have positive rights to certain things, and you really want to start pulling back from that, because any right that requires somebody else to do something for you isn't
isn't all right.
Isn't all right? Yeah. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I think the whole concept of a left-leaning libertarian is really an oxymoron. I don't know how that could exist, quite frankly, because I think one of the foundations of the liberty-minded is property rights. Okay, and you can't have property rights when you see me like your leanings. You have some leanings that tend to be more socialist than anything else. So I don't understand this concept of a left-leaning libertarian. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if we're going to believe in property rights, it must be, and we should say, it's individual property rights. There's no such thing as those collective rights. I mean, sure, we have government property that is owned by the government, and but it's not really the government's property. It's really us. It's our property. We own it collectively. So in that sense, we do have some collective rights. But in terms of our lives, our daily lives, it's our individual property rights that really and truly count. And the concept of a left-leaning libertarian, which you are right, I was reading something about libertarians recently, and some of the statements that was coming out to some of the people who was in the article was reading, some really like, I don't want to say they've gone socialist. No, I'm not going to say that. But it seems to be some leaning in that direction, and I find that kind of strange, to say the least.
Yeah, and I feel like if if you wanted to have a legitimate parsing of right and left, to me that would be more like, okay, where do libertarians fall on abortion? Because I think you can fall on either side of that issue and still be a libertarian. I think there's good principles on both sides of that issue, right? But if you're talking about what's the government going to do for me, to me, libertarians always need to be on one side of that issue, right?
Yes.
And it does feel a little bit like there's some. I mean, like, okay, we had Chase Oliver on the show before, and he was the last presidential candidate, and we had Joe Jorgensen. It felt to me like Chase Oliver's a little more to the left than Joe Jorgensen. I don't know.
I agree with that.
Oliver was completely what we're describing now as left. He seemed to have a grasp on the economic stuff, but that clearly wasn't what he was leading with, though. So,
yeah. Which was another strange thing to me. But keep going. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, anyways, that's just some thoughts about, I guess, this. I guess we've digressed here.
We did.
Issues of choices, but yeah, I mean, a lot of times there aren't even choices on the ballot sometimes, and that makes it hard, because then how do you break that dichotomy? Like you're saying, well, if you're looking and you're saying, like, for me, the Democrats are kind of insane on a lot of things, right? So I mean, there's almost no way I'm going to wind up voting for one of them. I will confess that I did vote for Jerry Brown once for governor.
Okay.
I respected him a little more than just about any other Democrat I can think of. Yes. But otherwise, I mean, it's pretty hard to recall any Democrat that I voted for, and quite frankly, I didn't really think that much of the person he was running against. So, I mean, but yeah, and Jerry Brown disappointed me on a lot of things too, especially his pushing of the bullet train. I think
yeah. That was a big thing of his. Yes.
Yeah. But he was also very fiscally restrained as far as Democrats go. I mean, that's one of the things I appreciated. I mean, he was a little more of an out of the box guy, but I mean, that's one of the rare times when I can think of that I've sort of crossed the aisle, other than when I, used to be much younger and I tended to vote Republican, and then I started shifting away toward libertarian, but voting Democrat is kind of almost a bridge too far.
Yeah, boy. Oh God. I mean, there are very few people that I have ever listened to and read about them that I would say, well, if they end up in an election somewhere, I will consider voting for them. There are very, very few. There's only one person right now that I can think about. I mean, I'm not here to endorse anybody, but this is someone who is I know he's a Democrat and he appears on Fox News quite often. Probably, I mean, depending on who he was running against, obviously, I could probably see myself voting for him because obviously I don't agree with a lot of his views on some things, but he's not close-minded as some of those really crazy, insane Democrats. He's not. So, but beyond that, I just can't vote for these people. I can't.
Well, I guess to get back to a little more what we were talking about on principle, and before we leave Henry Kissinger, there is one point I guess I want to make, because we talked about, being principle maybe that define whether or not somebody is not corrupt. And if you think about it, this last thing point on the slide talks about him being an advocate of a policy called realpolitik. And I guess my understanding of this is that it's sort of about what works best for America, but not necessarily what is morally right, in making decisions about how you're going to interact with other countries. And maybe that means in terms of potentially supporting dictators in other countries and stuff like that. And I think that's what some of the people who object to Henry Kissinger are getting at there, is that, even though some of his policies maybe were relatively good, like when you think of detente, and I mean, that was sort of getting us to sort of cool our guns with the Soviets. I mean, that's a good thing. Yes. But on the other hand, if we're sitting there and supporting dictators because maybe we think that blocks the Soviets in another place, now we're starting to get into some real morally dubious areas. And I guess that could be seen as corruption. I don't know, but I didn't know if you had any last thoughts on that, Leon.
Well, the only thing I would say, I mean, I can obviously see the moral issue. I mean, we all try to be moral men and women, and we try to analyze the world and surely along the lines of right and wrong. However, there are some practical matters that we have to live with, that we cannot get away from. And one of them being, there's evil in the world. And because of there's evil in the world, and I for the most part, I tend to think that we in the West are the good guys. That doesn't mean we are always morally right in our choices, but I tend to see us as the good guys. But the fact that we have evil in the world means that we have to deal with evil in at some level or the other. Either we deal with it through war or we deal with it through diplomacy. And so sometimes it may appear that we may have to be supporting a dictator or supporting some corrupt individual in a foreign land. But that's the practical aspect of existing in the world as it is. We would have loved to be able to sit here and say that we can hold the rest of the world to some higher standard of morality, but I don't think we'll ever get there because evil will always exist. So it's what it is. We have to live with it in some form or fashion. I mean, I don't want us to become like that, but it's something that we have to deal with. I mean, for instance, for a good example of this is China. I think communism is downright evil, quite frankly. Okay, but could we avoid dealing with China? We have to deal with them at some level or the other.
Yeah, and it's the question is, I guess, how are we dealing with them? Are we helping them to round up Uyghurs, or are we simply trying to open them up to free trade? That kind of a thing.
Sure,
I think these are kind of different things, and I guess if this is where I guess it's so important in my mind as a libertarian that government be as simple as possible, because the simpler it is, the easier it is for us to make these moral distinctions. But the more complicated it is, none of us have time to figure out what else. I mean, most people, if you think about it, in your local community, you probably don't go to most of your local board meetings. You probably don't go to your city council meetings or any of these things. And well, guess what? Concentrated interests do, right? And that's why these things are so complicated, right? Because they can steer it if nobody else can pay attention to it, and that's the problem. And so, I mean, if we don't get to simple, a lot of these morally bankrupt things that do happen in government are not going to be stopped, because the incentives are just too high there if we load too much power into government.
That is so true. But so I'll leave with this: that if we accept the fact there's evil in the world, and we have to deal with evil at some point in time, we cannot avoid it. I think the issue will always, that moral issue will always come up. So where do you draw the lines in terms of dealing with these people who think communism is a great and wonderful thing? I mean, I think this system is downright evil. So where do you draw that line as to say, no, this is a bridge too far for us? And I don't know where that line is, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think for most libertarians, was it voluntary or not? If somebody wants to engage in voluntary communism or socialism, have at it. But the moment you try and force me into it, it's wrong. But like you're saying, as a country, maybe we have some line to walk with some of these countries that are communist. Whatever. So
right. Yes.
Anyways, speaking of communists, let's talk about what happened in the California election the other day, just yesterday. And I wanted to start with a video that shows exactly how the election process is run and kind of why we don't actually know. It's been a full day away, and we don't actually know. These results are all tentative. And it seems like in a digital age, that's kind of crazy. I mean, if you do something with your bank or your broker or whoever, immediately whether it's done nowadays. But when you're voting, it's a government system, and it feels like, we're playing with sticks and sand. And
to be fair to some of the states, mostly the red states, I mean, a lot of them will get through their results and everything and publish results that night, right? It's only in California and mostly in the blue states, it go on for days and days and days. And we know whenever these things are outstanding, the results are outstanding the day after the election, 2 days after the election, 3 days after the election, what's happening in the back rooms, right? And it's nothing good. Okay, so let's be fair to at least some of those states who really make a concerted effort to get the results off and publish on the election night. So.
Yeah, I have heard that, like in Florida, usually they have the election results that night usually. So
they do.
But
they do.
Yes. I'm not sure if it's they're going digital or whatever. But let's see how California deals with it, because I mean, I wasn't even going to bring this thing, but one of the articles I was looking at, Fox 40 article, actually dealt with showing what was going on this morning, what was currently happening as they're still counting ballots. So here we go.
LA County is still tabulating and processing the ballots this morning.
Yep, that's right. Mario Ramirez joins us now in the City of Industry with more. Mario, this is cool to see.
Yeah, it really is a behind-the-scenes look. While the voting may be over, the process of counting those ballots is still going strong, and those ballots helping to determine who moves forward from the primary to the general election in November. You can see those election workers here behind me. Some of them have been here since late last night, verifying voter information, preparing ballots to be added to the official count. So let's take a look at those ballots coming in. Overnight, a steady stream of ballots arriving from vote centers and ballot drop boxes across LA County. Sheriff's deputies escorting and transporting secured ballots to this facility, with county vehicles making deliveries throughout the night, and at the same time, sheriff's helicopters were deployed to collect ballots.
helicopters to carry ballots. Jeez Louise.
So once ballots arrive here inside, they go through multiple steps before they can be counted. Election officials verify signatures, confirm voter eligibility, and ensure every ballot is properly accounted for before it moves through the tabulation process. Some ballots require even more review, so that includes provisional ballots, ballots with damaged or unclear markings, and write-in votes that have to be verified by election staff. And even though it's the morning after Election Day, new ballots still coming in, expected to arrive for days to come. Under California law, mail ballots postmarked by Election Day can be counted if they arrive within 7 days.
So how long before we know who won?
So while some winners may emerge as early as today, the officials here, election officials, say you can expect those updates to continue for the days to come, and sometimes even weeks before we get certified results. For now.
So there you go. And it just struck me, helicopters delivering. I mean, wow. It's like we have the most labor-intensive method out here at Pierce of getting these ballots to the collection centers. I don't know. It just seems kind of nuts. You got any thoughts on that, Leon, before we move on from it?
You know, Jason, we here in California, we like to boast about our high-tech sector, Silicon Valley. It is so wonderful that we have all this high-tech stuff right here in our midst. And somehow or the other, we in California cannot come up with a secure method by which to do these mail-in ballots or which to count ballots and do it properly and all that kind of stuff. We cannot use technology to figure this out. But you know why that is? It's because everything we do here in California is so damn corrupt that we have to keep the old systems in place so that the day after the election or 2 days after the election, we could accidentally remember that we left 500 ballots in grandma's back seat. We could remember that. And all of a sudden it will count. So this is the kind of things that's going on here in California. And this is where the corruption comes in the very counting of our ballots. Our most cherished right, which is the right to vote, is being taken and twisted for the ends of politicians who don't give a damn about the people they're representing. And we allow these people to keep on representing us. This is a scandal here. This is madness.
Well, and if you're watching us on public access, you're going to have to catch the rest of the madness at knuckleheadsofliberty.com, where you can see the rest of this issue and Trump's $250 bill and our farewell to Eric Swalwell. But anyways, I guess let's jump into the polls, I guess, before we start looking at what actually happened in the governor's race last night. So let me bring this up. This was one of the more recent polls, I think, going into the election. And this was probably about a week before the election. And it looked like Xavier Becerra had jumped into the lead. And then Steve Hilton and Tom Steyer were tied. And then you had Chad Bianco, was sort of him and Katie Porter were duking it out there for some sort of relevancy, I guess. It's kind of weird because, the someone else or undecideds, I guess a lot of those would have been people who were voting for Eric Swalwell that we'll talk about later. But he was unceremoniously dumped from the race when, so a lot of allegations came out, Me Too type of allegations. And so that kind of upset everything, because at that point, Xavier Becerra was, I believe, under 5%. He may have even been close to 1%. And suddenly, when Swalwell fell out, it looks like the forces, the way they did around Biden for presidency, if you remember, they just sort of all coalesced around Becerra. In fact, I think Steyer has even made some allegations that he thinks there's been some funny business about how fast Xavier Becerra dogged him to the lead. So,
and I would not doubt that one penny. I would not doubt it, not at all.
Yeah, and then to top it off, I mean, Tom Steyer is a billionaire. He spent $200 billion on this race, and he's not going to be in the final two. But let's find out who are in the final two, and we'll jump to a video of what happened last night in the governor's race, or at least as far as we knew this morning, anyway.
Yeah.
So we don't have final numbers yet.
All right, let's take you to the race for California governor. 58% reporting at this hour. We've got Republican Steve Hilton in the lead here at 27.8%. Former Health and Human Services Secretary and former AG of California, Javier Becerra, at 25.4%.
So let's hear a little bit of Steve Hilton's victory speech.
I know that some of you may be watching and saying, who is this guy with a funny accent? Thinks he can be governor of California. Well, you know, there was actually an immigrant who was governor of California not that long ago. Not that long ago. And I remember when I became an American citizen, that certain governor you may remember. He said, congratulations. He made a very nice video. He said, but Steve, you got to get the wrong jacket. You got the wrong jacket. And I made a pledge that day that one day I would get the jacket that Arnold told me to get on my road to being governor of California. And here it is. I am a proud American. There's the jacket. And I am a very proud Californian. A very proud.
And let's hear from the Democrat challenger now, Javier Becerra.
There are powerful forces aligned to darken our light. Distrust, disinformation, division, and distraction. Make no mistake, those forces did not want tonight to happen because their success depends on our failure. The last thing these forces want is a working class governor with a law degree and a union card ready to call them out.
And by the way, I said Fox 40 earlier. This is actually Channel 40 from the Los Angeles area, so it's not Fox 40. That's our local Sacramento station. Yeah, but but anyways, one of the things you could see there was that obviously it's Becerra and Hilton are the two that are going to be in this. It looks like, and Hilton, I didn't quite show everything in his speech went on quite a bit longer than that. One of the things I really liked that he said was he had mentioned that, he's friends with some of these other Republican governors in other states. And he's saying to them, you guys have done really well for yourselves. But once I'm in office, we're going to be taking those companies back. They're all exiting the state. And I mean, this is something that is a real issue here. I mean, we've had these refineries are leaving. And of course, that's a bigger issue, getting them to come back. But and you also have a lot of citizens as well that are leaving the state. Let's see. Here's an article we brought up before. But I mean, Gavin Newsom essentially U-Haul Salesman of the Year running on for his entire term. So it's chilling, but I like that message that, hey, Steve Hilton is looking ahead enough that, hey, we're going to bring these businesses back, and of course that's not a message of division. That if you're a Democrat and you're hearing that should actually be something you like hearing from him, regardless of what party he is. And I don't see that message from the Democrats. And what I saw from Becerra is he's saying other people are trying to be divisive. Excuse me, the Democrats, their entire message is identity politics. That literally is fighting us on almost everything they do, which anyways, you have any thoughts on all this, Leon?
Well, when you think about the history of the inner cities of America, say like Detroit or Chicago, I mean, in the 60s and 70s, these cities were wonderful cities. I mean, of course, cities always have their problems, but these cities were growing and thriving, okay? But then the Democrats took over. And just like we're seeing going on in California right now, they drove out, raised taxes, raised regulation, the amount of regulations. They put in place all sorts of environmental things that they need to satisfy their own political base. They drove the businesses out. But you see, what these people don't realize, when they drive businesses out and they drive out some of their constituents out, they are also driving away a tax base, okay, which is very important for these clowns. They can't even figure that one out. They are driving away their tax base. And then the cities fall into disrepair into ruin. Look at Detroit today. Before Coleman Young took over in Detroit, Detroit was a wonderful place to go live in. But look at what Coleman Young and all these successive mayors have done since then. The city ended up in bankruptcy some years ago, and they had to appoint a receiver or some whatever they had to do to get themselves out of the mess that they're in. And they're still in the mess. But this is what happens when the Democrats come with all of their lunatic policies, their socialist policies. They just drive out their tax base and drive businesses out. And here we are having this problem right here in California, statewide. Government policy is driving out our tax base. Day in, day out. Citizens are leaving, businesses are leaving, God knows how many. And where are they going to? They're going to places that are more friendly to business interests, to individual rights interests, like Florida, Tennessee, Texas, and that is what's happening. But these crazy people, they cannot figure that out. You know, I was listening to the mayor of Seattle. She's a democratic socialist or whatever the hell they call themselves. And she was talking about, I believe, some of the businesses were, because of the amount of regulations that they were putting in place and the taxes and all that kind of stuff. And she was talking about, oh, yes, well, yes, some of these businesses are leaving and stuff like that. Well, if they want to leave, well, then bye. You know, This is the kind of mentality of these people. They don't even realize what they're doing now. She's trying to walk these things back now, but it's already too late. Businesses already made their plans and they're gone. I think Starbucks is leaving up there, or some part of their business is leaving up there. But this is what they think. It's okay. Bye. It's no big deal. This is a failure. This is a complete failure of government. Well, we always expect government to fail, but we don't expect them to fail this bad. Well, maybe I'm being charitable here, but this is a problem. This is a real big problem. And we have children and grandkids growing up in this place. What's going to happen to them over the next 10 years?
Yeah. And it's not a one-off, too. Like we talked about that situation in Seattle, I think, on the last show.
Yeah.
But, you know, Kathy Hochul in New York, the state of New York was chasing people out and, like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. I can't remember exactly what her phrase was as people were leaving for Florida. Yeah. And now it's like, please come back. We need you.
Exactly.
Programs.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And what we're seeing now, California jumping into that same mistake with their billionaires tax that's going to be on the ballot in November. And even and to be fair, there's a few Democrats who are actually warning against it. You know, people like Newsom are saying, hey, that's a bad idea. I think he wants to run for president in 2 years, and the last thing he wants to see is California just degrade into a poverty basket case where
exactly.
all the businesses and billionaires have left.
Well, that's where we're heading. Unless we take a radical change in terms of our direction, in terms of our environmental policies, tax policies, and all the general regulatory policies. Unless we take a U-turn on these things, we ended up to the garbage heap of economic ruin. That's where we ended up. That's where we're going. But these politicians seem clueless. Every day they're talking about some new fancy regulation that is going to save us. Save us. Lord, help us, please.
Well, maybe there's some help on the horizon because what's happening in the mayoral race in Los Angeles is quite interesting. It may not have quite been the result that a lot of Republicans were hoping for last night, but I'm still very excited and optimistic about what I'm seeing there. Let's jump into it with a video of the tentative results, and then we can talk a little bit more about it.
Is a look at the LA mayoral race. Incumbent Mayor Karen Bass is in the lead, followed by Spencer Pratt and then Nithya Raman.
This race is particularly interesting because Spencer Pratt has mounted a viral video campaign of social media ads vilifying the Democrat Party for the role they've had here in causing the Pacific Palisades to burn to the ground, rampant drug use and homelessness in the streets. And I mean, it's been getting national attention. I'm going to show you just a little clip of one of the most viral ads. Unfortunately, we can't share the whole thing because when we did before, it wound up getting flagged. But here we go.
If we want to burn this town to the ground, pull through that!
I feel so close.
You can do it, Spencer!
Part of what makes these videos interesting is because it's not just a condemnation of his opponent, Karen Bass, but it is also a condemnation of Gavin Newsom and his record as California governor. As you could see in that video, he is being attacked too. But let's go and hear just a little bit from Karen Bass.
We're going to build a city where parents and kids do not have to navigate tents, because in the nation's second largest city, there should never be anybody that is sleeping on our streets. We are a city that can deal with this, and we have been doing it, and we are going to continue. We are a city where things have been not affordable over these last few years, but we're going to continue building the housing that we know we are needed in this city. 42,000 units are already underway, and in the next 4 years, we're going to finish those 42,000 units.
Oh my God, she has been mayor for 4 years, and people still have to navigate tents. Homelessness isn't really down at all from when she came in. I think it even rose up higher, and I think it's come back down to near the levels from when she came into office. And as far as building goes, I mean, they lost, what was it? I think it was well over 10,000 homes in that fire somewhere in that neighborhood, and they've only rebuilt just about a dozen since then. So, I mean, this is just nuts. Well, let's hear a little bit from her challenger, Spencer Pratt.
The moms who want to be able to go to parks and not see anybody shooting up fentanyl with their pants off. I was in the Valley yesterday, a beautiful Persian restaurant, and the lovely owner said, Spencer, they have naked drug addicts in front of the kids when we're trying to have food at the restaurant. This is across the city. And again, as mayor, I'm going to help these homeless people, these drug addicts. Right now, this idea that it's just, we need more beds, I agree. We do need beds in treatment facilities, mandatory treatment. That's not jail. Criminals deserve to go to jail. If you're abusing animals, you're going to jail. If you are doing crimes, you're going to jail. But if you're just an addict addicted to super meth or fentanyl, well, I'm going to get you the mandatory help that these.
Look at the energy difference too around that. I mean, Karen Bass had a crowd behind her, and it was the perfect diversity rainbow. No white men and every other group you can imagine, right? Yes, but Spencer Pratt wasn't surrounding himself with a identity crowd the way Karen Bass was. He was surrounded by reporters who couldn't get enough of him. There were cameras, everybody's hands all around him. And I think that really shows a different way of doing things, a different strategy here, a different way of understanding the moment we're in. I don't know, did you have any initial thoughts on what's going on with the mayor's race, Leon?
Well, I'm really pleased to see Pratt is making a very good showing in Los Angeles. I mean, it's a deep blue city, and Karen Bass has the whole Democratic establishment behind her. And I'm hoping and praying that Spencer Pratt can break through. Now, I know he has a steep hill to climb because, like I said, the city is deep blue. But I think as he keeps on with his campaign and highlighting some of the very obvious problems and corruption that is ongoing in Los Angeles, I think he may have a chance. Even though I still think Bass may stand a very good chance of getting reelected, I think Pratt, if he could keep on highlighting the incompetence of this woman, well, I mean, it doesn't matter which Democrat it was, okay? But in this particular case, Karen Bass, if he could keep on highlighting the incompetence of this woman and all of the things, all of these claims that she's now making, oh, it's been done since I've been in, oh, it's been done 17%, oh, this and that, and all the damn nonsense you're talking about, and she still cannot figure out what to do about the fire that destroyed a whole bunch of people's homes, including that of Spencer Pratt. She cannot still yet come to terms with the fact that her incompetence led to, well, maybe the start of the fire would have started anyway, but the response to it was so incompetent is beyond belief. But he have to keep on highlighting these things, and hopefully he will break through. and I hope he does.
And you know what? One of the funny ironies of all this is the guy that she ran against before, this guy named Caruso. Yeah, he actually kind of understood things, but he wasn't the diversity, I guess, that LA was looking for, right? But he actually kind of had an inkling of what the fire issues were in this city. And you know what? In his neighborhood, things didn't wind up burning down around his home because he hired private fire people to come in and be ready for it, while Karen Bass was partying in Ghana.
Yeah.
Outside on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And this guy, who's not even mayor, understood the risks, and he was hiring people to be out there, while Karen Bass was not even providing the funding that the fire department said it needed. And so, it's just absolutely, absolute negligence, and of course they had reservoirs that were empty, and for huge periods of time too. We're talking about like one of these reservoirs was empty because of some problem with a cover, I believe it was, for over a year. Why don't you fix the damn thing? That's what your job is as mayor, is to deal with the nuts and bolts of everyday issues, not to be worrying about whether or not you had the first lesbian fire chief. I mean, this is just absolute insanity that you have happening under these Democrats. Like Becerra was saying, well, we're all about stopping division. Excuse me, if you're looking for identity politics and hiring the people who are going to keep you safe and in a disaster, that is the definition of employing division, right? And it leads to disaster, and that's absolutely what we saw happen there in Los Angeles. So yeah, it's just absolutely nuts. But there's another issue that's going on here for Republicans with this mayoral race, and that's that because Spencer Pratt is somebody who was just kind of a complete unknown in politics, at the beginning of the year. I mean, his campaign is fresh, and this is somebody who's come on, since January, I think, and is suddenly very close to Karen Bass in the polls right now. And he's mounting a viral campaign where he's getting all these people volunteering to make videos for him, showing the incompetence of Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, as the little clip we just showed, that it's possible. I mean, I think Republicans should be very happy that Spencer Pratt didn't outright win this thing this time around, because it means he has to stay on offense with all guns blazing. And that may actually pull a Republican or two over the finish line with him, because every attack against Karen Bass and the political machine in Los Angeles is attack against the Democrat Party running the entire state of California. Shown, and attacks include Gavin Newsom and a lot of them, right? And so, just picking the stooge from Central Castings, Javier Becerra, to fill in the role here at the end, right? I mean, he clearly he's not, the Mr. Message guy. He's not a ball of fire. He's just somebody that, that, hey, we just need a warm body here.
He's part of the Democratic establishment. There's no doubt about that. And he's just going to be doing what they have done all these years. Right? And look at what his speech was. Oh, I have a union card. Okay, so what? I have a union card. What's the other thing he said? He had a union card and something else, whatever he had.
Oh, I think he was he has a law degree.
He had a law degree and a union card. The two things that we don't need in running government. Okay? Seriously.
Well, to have a few people with some legal perspective is not bad, but unfortunately, these people who like him are championing their legal perspective. They got no other perspective. It's like that and the union, and it's like, how the hell are you going to get anything built in this? You're just worried about diversity and making laws about diversity and trans identity and all kinds of other
identity. Gays and lesbians and all that kind of stuff. Destroying the public schools and all that kind of stuff. Okay, we got it. We got where priorities lie.
No, it's too bad, but that's kind of where we're at. But I do think that Republicans should be at least a little bit optimistic that there may be a chance, because otherwise there's just, I mean, my gosh, the politics in this state are just so terrible. But that perfect storm may have been that fire and Spencer Pratt here that actually may cause things to turn around a little here in California. We can only hope, but
we can only hope.
We can only
hope. We could hope and pray.
I think we should all be looking for a U-Haul at this point. So, anyways, so let's get to a completely different story about the economy, and this one has to do with funny money. I don't know if that's the way to see it, but there's about to be there possibly might be a new bill on the horizon. Here we go.
Tonight, we're looking into a story you've no doubt heard in the last 24 hours. It claims a $250 bill with President Trump's face is in the works. That's true, but it's far from a done deal. The Treasury Secretary confirms his agency already has a design for the bill. Under current law, though, no living president can appear on currency, so it will be up to Congress to pass the legislation to make an exception, and Trump's allies have introduced legislation to do that. It's not clear, though, if it has the votes to pass.
And this is not a joke. Bassett was questioned at a White House press briefing just the other day about it.
How long until we see your signature next to President Trump's face on a $250 bill?
Well, again, as Treasury Secretary, I have two mandates for U.S. currency. At present, no living person can be on U.S. currency, and the currency must say, "In God we trust." So right now there is proposed legislation in front of the House, in front of the Senate, to change the first requirement so that a living person, Donald J. Trump, could be on the $250 bill.
Okay, so let's see. So here's I'm going to give you a little bit of a minor history lesson, but this is roughly a facsimile, I guess, of the bill that what it's going to look like, I guess, when that bill comes around. This is kind of a little bit of a granulated picture, but it wasn't that easy actually to find clear pictures of this without some logo in front of it or something else. So, but yeah, that's the image. And, you know, I mean, I got to tell you, I've talked a little bit about the history of coinage, at least in this country in the past. And I mean, it feels very much like some lessons are being lost here. In fact, I'm not even sure it's a completely popular idea among MAGA. There was an Axios story that talked about how, you know, not all of MAGA is sold on this. And I guess they had some kind of a survey that said it looked like only about 48% approved, with about 26% disapproving and another 26% unsure. Since that doesn't add up to 100, I have no idea what that other oh, excuse me. No, it does. 26, 26, and 48. It does add up to 100.
Okay.
So anyways, but that is, you know, that's a little bit of an issue. I mean, it's at least over 50% aren't sure what to think of this. And I think that's it. Maybe that's a good sign, because, you know, our founding fathers didn't actually think that was a good idea. We may see dead presidents on our money today, but that actually was not something they wanted. And let me show you the current bill that is the highest bill in circulation, I guess, is the $100 bill that's issued out. And that has Ben Franklin's picture on it, and not a dead president, but a dead founding father. Yes. But he actually was the architect of the design of the first penny. And let me bring that up, and you'll notice that there's no face at all on this coin. This is and the reason is because they came from a history of kings and tyrants who, that's the first thing every king and tyrant does, is put their face on the money so that you know who the boss is.
Yes.
So and what Ben Franklin had on this coin, it was a sundial on one side, and this is called the Fujio penny. That's the first one he designed, and it has the term "mind your business." And on the other side, there are 13 rings intertwined to represent the colonies at that time, and it said "We are one." Right? So much different idea of the way the founding fathers were looking at that. But there were some faces on money after that. But if we look at some of the history of some of the coinage since then, the faces of all these coins, at least through the 1800s, all only bore one image as far as a person goes, and that was a lady, and it was always Liberty. So it was Lady Liberty was what you saw on all the money, because again, they did not want to have a picture of a king. And this is actually a half-cent coin. So, you know, that's a kind of another quirk here. There's a whole bunch of coins you may not realize that have disappeared. And it may seem like this doesn't tie into our discussion about the $250 bill, but it does. Just hang with me a little bit longer. But this is a half-cent coin, and that's got Lady Liberty on it. Excuse me. Here is another coin. This is a 2-cent coin. It does not even have a picture of a person on it. It just has a picture of a shield, you know. And then here's another. This is a 3-cent coin, and this has a picture of Lady Liberty on it again. So you can see the little Liberty across the headset. And even coins like people talk about the Indian head penny. That also, if you look very closely, unfortunately this one's faded, but if you go find a better image online of an Indian head penny, it says Liberty across. It's actually supposed to be Lady Liberty in an Indian headdress. So this is, you know, something that was really important to the founding fathers, not to have monuments built to them, not to have, you know, their face on the currency, because that's where they were coming from. That they wanted to get away from that. That was the message that they absolutely did not want to have. And it wasn't until the Lincoln penny that we sort of forgot this lesson. And here it is, of course, the penny we're all familiar with. And that came around in 1909. So it took over 100 years for people to forget that lesson and decide, hey, it's a great idea if we start putting at least dead presidents on the coin. Right?
Well, now they're trying to put living presidents on the coin too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, now they're trying to put living presidents on the coin. But it is interesting too that you notice all of these little coins now are gone. Even the penny is now defunct. Trump has ended the penny, so they haven't pulled them all out of circulation yet, but they stopped minting them. And you know, Trump said the penny's dead, and there's a reason for that, and it's because the value of the penny has been debased so much that this coin that used to be all copper, now covered in zinc, and it still costs 4 times as much to make it than its face value. And so therefore, you know, and the melt value is higher, and so it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's what's happening when you debase these things. And so Trump saying that, hey, we need a higher bill now, and we need my face on it, that is like literally stamping your face on the debasement of our currency. It's almost like acknowledging, hey, we're putting a bigger bill up here because our money doesn't afford as much anymore, and it's got my face on it. And say goodbye to the penny, along with all those half-cent, 2-cent, and 3-cent coins. And Jefferson on the nickel, you know, you're next, buddy. So the time is limited. So anyways, yeah, Leon, I wasn't sure if you had any thoughts on this story, but I just find it just terrible that he wants to put his own face on it, and that people are cheering like that's a great idea.
So is it your contention then that we should have no memorials or no any sort of things that honor our past leaders, past presidents, past whatever, people who have defunct us, whatever? Is it your contention we should have none of this? Like the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, whatever these are, wherever they are, we should not have any of these. Is that your contention?
I could see making an exception for something like Arlington National Cemetery, because these people literally died for their country. So having some kind of a, you know, memorial like that, but in general to a specific person, I think that's what we were trying to get away from. And think about it this way too, you know, who do most people in this country, we're a Christian country, and so probably a person that, you know, people hold in higher reverence than any of these presidents for the most part is Jesus Christ. And We don't need government building monuments to Jesus. People do it all on their own. Right? We have all these churches, and we don't have people tearing down statues of Jesus. That everybody's just cool with it because government isn't involved. And so that's kind of my feeling about it.
Well, I mean, if the government is building statues to Jesus, I think we run into the separation of church and state issue in that particular case. But I get your point. Now, I could see a point on this, but I always run into a simple issue. If we are looking at placing people's face on, in this case, Trump, on a $250 bill, and if it's our elected leaders doing it, I mean, there's nothing in the Constitution that forbids them from doing so. Even though I understand your point about traditionally the founders really wanted us to move away from honoring men, making them into kings. But if our elected leaders are choosing to do this, and they are supposed to be representing us, why should we object to this?
Well, I think for the same reason, if a whole bunch of people want to be communists and voting for it, we should absolutely say, hey, that's a bad idea. Now, granted, if the majority vote for communism, then I guess we're going to have to pack our U-Hauls and head out of the country. but I mean, that's the point, right? I mean, if you're saying it's a bad idea, I mean, I think we should raise our voices and say so. But you're right. I mean, I don't think there's anything in the Constitution that keep them from putting his face on the money, but it's clearly was. Let's put it this way: the people who literally made America great, Washington, Jefferson, Franklin, didn't think this was a good idea, and suddenly Trump thinks it's a good idea. So I guess it's a good idea now. Right. I mean, I think I'm going to go with Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin on this one.
Well, I mean, the problem I have with this is that, I mean, I voted for Donald Trump. Yeah, that's no secret. But the problem I have with this particular thing is that Trump seemed to me as want to put his name and face on too many places. Okay, we have an issue right now going on with the Kennedy Center. All right, he want to change it to the Trump Kennedy Center or some kind of stuff like that. I mean, I understand the fact is that all politicians want to have some sort of legacy to leave behind, but I am sure this is not that the legacy that Trump should want to leave behind. I mean, it is true he's president at an important milestone in our history, 250 years since the founding. And in a sense, yes, we want to honor the leader at 250. But I mean, I find myself in this quandary where if our elected leaders are going to authorize it, and there's nothing in the Constitution that forbids it, I think I will have to maybe reluctantly say, okay, fine, it's okay. But I can understand your point about what Jefferson, Washington, and Jefferson, and all of these guys wanted in terms of us not trying to make men into kings. And this sort of things really is a step in that direction, obviously. So this is a difficult one for me. I'm not for it, but I'm not opposed to it either. So I'll just have to sit on the fence on this one.
Well, I'm definitely going down as opposed. The fence is a bridge too far for me, but I mean, the bottom line is, I mean, I can see why for a lot of people this doesn't, is probably not going to. I mean, it's going to drive the left nuts.
Well, for sure.
I'll have fun watching that. But on the other hand, it does make me sad that so many people who are conservative aren't aware of this issue, and that this is literally a move away from the founding fathers. And most of them consider themselves, they'll go on and on all day about how they believe in the Constitution and how they believe in original intent. And oh my God, original intent, they couldn't have made it more clear in the sense that they didn't have any president's face on the coins until 130 years something later, when they were all well and dead. And then finally, Lincoln is put on the penny. But, and then of course, cavalcade after that, and you get Jefferson, Washington, and Eisenhower, and, just, yeah. So no.
Well, yeah. No, in defense of conservatives on this point, I've already stated that I'm on the fence on this one. But something you said, I have to defend conservatives on that point. We believe, come to myself among conservatives, we believe if the Constitution does not forbid it, okay, then even though the history of our country have been designed by men who thought this was a bad idea, but they did not put that into the Constitution. If it was such a bad idea that they think it will damage the republic in some manner, I think they should have put it in the Constitution, and thus it would have been forbidden unless we amend the Constitution. So I don't think it is fair to say that we who believe in original intent, and I do believe in original intent, could not possibly support this. I can see conservatives supporting this because of the Constitution. I really could.
Well, I can tell you, I have my doubts that Scalia would have gone. And he was Mr. Original Intent.
Well, I know he was, but he believed in the document, and he believed in the document as written.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I will make a blanket statement. Probably, and he sure, he was my favorite justice, Supreme Court justice, and I don't know if I can make such a blanket statement. I don't know.
Well, just think of this: when in 8 years you're getting Mom Donnie or AOC bucks in your wallet,
well,
just remember.
No, Jason. No, I think that is a better argument for why we should be against this. Okay, what you just said. Because
that's exactly, I think, what the founding fathers were seeing too. You don't want to align it with anybody who's in power. That's the same reason not to have monuments to people, certainly while they're alive.
Right, alive.
I mean, there's nothing wrong private, right? I mean, if somebody wants to make a Trump museum today and everybody wants to come to it, that's fine. That's the way it should be, right? I mean, if it's popular, let it be. But it just is whether or not the government gets involved with it, right? And that's the, kind of the defining line to me. But
yes.
Anyways, sorry, go ahead. Did you have any last?
No,
thoughts?
I mean, in this case is our currency, and so the government have to be involved, whether Trump face is going to appear or not. The government has to be involved. So, well, I don't know. Like I said, I'm torn, truly torn on whether I should oppose or whether I should support this. I don't know.
Well, just think about that Mom Donnie funny money that might be in your wallet.
Well, like I said, I can see that.
That'll wake you up.
Yeah, it's true. I can see that as a much better argument as to why I should be opposed to this thing, because I would hate to believe that one day I could see a $10 bill or $20 bill or $15 bill or whatever it is, and somebody finding, well, we should honor Zoran Mamdani by putting his face on this new $21 bill or something like that. So a $22 bill, we should put his face on that money. And
that can only be spent at your local government grocery store.
There we go. I may have to travel all the way to New York to spend the money, that phony money, right? So, like I said, it's a better argument to why we should oppose it, because We don't want all kind of crooks and communists and socialists and all the other living corrupt politicians to be taking charge of our currencies, and so that we'll have to honor them in this manner. So I can see that as a legitimate argument. I really do.
Well, let's move on to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, which is about a guy who has no chance now of being on the money in the future. And that is Representative Eric Swalwell, who, wound up getting himself eliminated from the governor's race. And, I think he had maybe presidential aspirations too in the future as well. And he saw that all come to an abrupt and quick collapse recently. And we have a little video on that just to kind of say farewell to Swalwell, who we knew too well. Here we go.
Okay, but first up, he was just reelected to his third term as U.S. Rep from California's 15th, and it's his birthday, Congressman Eric Swalwell.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. What was your wish?
To be with my family, but if I can't be with them, I want to be with the real time.
Yeah, you must really want to be president because it's your birthday and you're here on my show.
No, it's fun to watch.
You got my vote.
Done.
So Eric Swalwell was off to a bang-up start to his political career, as you can see, having Bill Maher's endorsement pretty early. And he also had a very big role in criticizing President Trump and going after Justice Kavanaugh in his confirmation hearings.
The Congress is assessing new allegations against Judge Kavanaugh. I want to bring in Congressman Eric Swalwell, who's at the center of many of these issues on the Judiciary and Intelligence Committee.
Good evening, Ari. I saw continued demeaning of victims of sexual assault, people who deserve to be heard, who deserve for their allegations to be investigated, and a president who wants to just rush this through. He criticized the Senate for even taking this long, Ari. And so for Brett Kavanaugh's sake, if he is innocent, I hope tomorrow he opens his statement and says, you know what? Bring in all the victims, allow them to be heard, allow them to be questioned.
And Swalwell had a few bumps in the road, like the infamous fart gate that plagued him for a little bit afterwards, and we'll just show you.
Chris, so far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election. And the complaint that I've heard from Republicans all last week.
They went on trying to claim that sound came from a coffee mug being dragged across the counter. We'll let you decide. But there were more serious allegations, like his connection to a Chinese spy.
A bombshell new report says a suspected Chinese spy targeted California politicians. And one of her biggest targets was Bay Area Representative Eric Swalwell.
This woman, Christine Fang, a Chinese national, was a student at Cal State East Bay and president of the Chinese Student Association. The FBI says she was also a spy who was trying to cozy up to Bay Area politicians, the mayor of Fremont, volunteering for Ro Khanna's campaign, and even a young Congressman, Eric Swalwell. Now, in his statement to Politico, Congressman Swalwell also said that he has no plans on stepping off of the House Intelligence Committee at this point.
And with a future full of presidential aspirations, he actually set his side in the short term on running for governor of California. And he was supposed to be in this current race that we've just been talking about earlier on the show. But he got sideswiped by a bunch of Me Too allegations. And it turned out that there was some video behind one of them.
The viral video appearing to show Eric Swalwell kissing a woman in a hotel bed is not AI, it's real. Newsweek obtained a forensic analysis report concluding the footage is authentic and shows no signs of AI generation or manipulation.
So there you have it. And of course, there were multiple women who accused him of misconduct. Now, that particular woman might not be a Me Too per se, in the sense that I don't know that she is one that accused unwanted.
Yeah.
My understanding is that might have actually been a prostitute, but you know, the point is that he had his own staffers were coming after him, claiming, you know, that he might have Cosby'd some gal.
yeah.
So. So anyways, it's pretty awful. And then of course, there's the whole issue of the, that brings to light too, that whole Fang thing, with the Chinese spy and, kind of a good looking gal. And, she kind of cozied up to him, I think, before he even became a congressman. So with the idea of, I guess the way it works is, anybody who has upward potential, you try and latch onto them, and then potentially feed. I mean, remember, Swalwell was on the intelligence committee, right? And they didn't even kick him off afterwards. So, so there's that. But I did want to show one more little video too, because in all of that, keep in mind the stuff he said about family and how that was so important to him and all that kind of stuff, and then kind of see how he came out. Well, he was totally taken unaware of this whole thing as it came out on him in the governor's race, and he had a huge ad buy that went out before, just before this all collapsed on him. And it left this super cringe video of him and his wife campaigning together afterwards. And I just think it's worth showing, because I think it goes back to our quote of the day here. Rough politicians make the other 10% look bad. And, this is, it's pretty disgusting to watch. So, but I think it's worth it, because it shows you how kind of slick a lot of these people are. Here you go.
Did you ever think I'd run for governor?
Absolutely not.
Did you think I could be governor?
Didn't cross my mind.
Appreciate that confidence.
What has surprised you the most that you're hearing from people?
I would say just how proud everyone is in every part of the state to be Californian. Like, almost like you got to be crazy to live anywhere else, but also how scared people are, like really scared.
Yeah, I'm scared.
But what I see across the state is people are optimistic, and there's a way for us to get through it.
I think you just got my endorsement.
You ready to do like a public endorsement video?
I don't think you need mine. You have Adam Schiff.
So what do you think voters should know about me besides what they, only seen on TV?
That you're a really great dad. You're a really good husband. I think the kids and I truly can count on you for anything. And if I gave you the choice, I'm not sure if you would choose to be governor of California or have the 49ers win the Super Bowl.
49ers. Governor. Definitely being governor of California, and making it a place where, when we retire, it's a place where our kids and everyone's kids can afford to live.
You're going to be a great governor.
Thanks.
And to be honest, I don't think the 49ers chances are that great this year either. They're a hell of a lot better than Eric Swalwell now. That it just felt so slimy. And yet that's, if you didn't know this about him and you saw that video, you'd think, man, that guy seems like a good guy, it seems like, and look what was just under the cover when you lift it up, And I think it gives a lot of weight to what Henry Kissinger's observation here.
Open the hood, see what's under there. Eric Swalwell, is really a joke, a hypocrite in every sense of the word, and obviously a man with some serious moral problems. And look at the amount of women that have accused him of all sorts of sexual misconduct. But Eric Swalwell, there he was on TV telling us how terrible Brett Kavanaugh was, and the accusations against Brett Kavanaugh were nothing compared to the accusation that we have against this man. And this is a man that has been trying to lecture us about how he's such a good father. And imagine he's walking with his wife, okay? And that video was made recently, long, I'm sure sometime after he had done all his dirty deeds.
Yeah, that literally dropped, I think, like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it was days after he was hit with the Me Too allegations and had to drop. I mean, because he started to get he got hit with a couple, and then one of his own staffers came out against him saying that it happened. And then a lot of his other staffers kind of said, yeah, that sounds like that's right. Oh, yeah.
Imagine, yes. So imagine Eric Swalwell trying to make himself into Jesus Christ to be governor of California. I mean, I don't think any politician should be allowed to engage in this sort of sexual misconduct and then get a free pass into the governor's mansion. But we but the whole problem we have in our society is these politicians who could tell us any sort of BS that they want to tell us, and it looked like people fall for it. I mean, I've heard things about Eric Swalwell for the longest while. Since this whole thing about Fang Fang came out, the Fang Fang man, we heard of all of this thing. And yet here he was on top of the polls. Oh my God, he's looking like he's going to be, head up this jungle primary, this corrupt jungle primary that we have. He's going to head it up. He's going to win it all. And Sorrell's beginning to look good. Then all of this dirt comes out. But these things were known, or at least there were allegations before all this dirt dropped. I knew about Eric Swalwell and Fang Fang. How could anybody even thinking about this thing of a governor? This man said on national TV that he helped Fang Fang get out of the country. I want to know what he meant by that. Did he mean he hid her and get her out? Or did he help the FBI get out? Why would they want to get her out of the country? If she's spying for China, she should be arrested and be in prison. At some point in time, I mean, of course, she'll be tried and all that. But Eric Swalwell on national TV said, oh, yeah, he assisted in getting her out of the country. I was sure like I want to know what he meant by that. But this is the thing. These corrupt politicians think and believe they can get away with anything. They get power. The power corrupts them. They have to maintain power. And then they believe they can get away with anything. And this is exactly what Swalwell's point. He could do whatever he wants to all his staffers and all these women, and nobody can touch him. That is what he thought. But here we are. I hope he ends up in prison where he belongs.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest, I mean, if it was only that he had, say, if he had an affair with some hooker or something like that, which is what we actually saw video of, right? So there's no question that happened. But then I think that really is just a question of whether or not the voters still want him or not. I mean, I think you'd have to be crazy to trust the guy. You see the way he's interacting with his wife. That's the kind of and it brings up credibility issues for his wife as well, right? I mean, because is she just like a ride along like Hillary was, or is she just being duped? And you'd like to hope that it's the latter, but that's the problem with these things, right? There's just so much corruption in these positions, and like I said, I mean, it wasn't clear. I mean, obviously with the Fang Fang thing, like you're saying, there wasn't direct evidence that he was sleeping with her, even though that was kind of what everybody was assuming was going on.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene even accused him of it on the Senate or on the House floor.
Yeah.
But,
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, still, it was there was no, I think, direct evidence that actually happened, but. Other than the fact that he had clear ties to this Chinese spy, just sort of like a good-looking gal, and we know kind of how Swalwell interacts with them. Right?
Yeah, of course.
But this is, I just think it's instructive seeing this. I mean, it's not like you want to necessarily just pillory your enemies, but on the other hand, you've got to kind of know what kind of creatures are out there, right? And this, I think, you watch a video of people interacting this way, and hey, what putting up an image of what good people they are, and right under the hood, it's pretty corrupt. So
indeed, for sure.
Well, anyways, I think that's all of our show. Oh, did you have anything else, Leon? Or
no, I just we hope we can always hope and pray that we lift up more rocks and let these cockroaches come out like Eric Swalwell. I really hope so.
Yeah. I think, too, the best defense that we have as individuals is to not be led by our feelings, but to try to be led by our principles. And, it's, creatures like Swalwell, I think that's how they catch people, right? Like that video that you saw him put out of him and his wife. I mean,
yes.
that was to generate feelings. That wasn't about principles. And that's exactly what they're feeding on. So,
of course.
Anyways, so that I think that's all we have for you tonight. Hopefully we'll have some good things for you in the future here coming up. There's a lot of stories need to be picked up still. So we'll we'll bring something exciting to you next week. But until then, think about what you can do in your community to advance the ball for liberty. I mean, my gosh, look at this Spencer Pratt. His whole community needed a hero, and he stepped up to be one.
Indeed.
And it's something real may be brewing there in LA because of him. So think about what you can do in your community. Until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.